Hi, this is Bill McCamley, and welcome to What the Bleep Does This Mean? It is a podcast where we take a fairly complicated thing going on in public and help describe it in hopefully understandable language in 15 minutes or less. And today's topic is Project 2025. This is a playbook for the new Republican administration. It was written by 140 folks who worked for Trump the last time he was president. And it got to be hugely controversial during the campaign because there's some kind of crazy stuff in there. And Trump distanced himself from it pretty hard when he was running. But it was written by a group called the Heritage Foundation. Their president actually wrote the foreword to the current vice president, J.D. Vance's book. They claim that two-thirds of their 2016 recommendations were put into play during the first year of Trump's last time as president. And one of the main authors is Trump's current pick to head up the Office of Budget and Management, which is a really, really powerful uh, DC office who has a ton of control over where federal money goes. His name's Russell Vought. Let's be super clear. This is a playbook. Just like Andy Reid, the head coach of the Chiefs, who play in the Super Bowl this weekend, is known for scripting out his first 15 plays of any game. National Republicans are doing the same thing, using Project 2025 as their offensive playbook for how to completely redo how a lot of you live your life. And here are some examples. In his first round of executive orders, these are directions that a president gives to the government agencies that he runs. More than two-thirds are directly from Project 2025. For instance, Project 2025 specifically says get rid of all rules saying that federal agencies and contractors need to be fair in terms of who they're hiring, no matter their race or gender or sexual orientation or religion or whatever. Trump did this right away. Project 2025 also calls for the federal government to send active duty troops to the border. And not only did Trump do this right away, he said it was okay for federal agents to go into schools and churches, which previously hadn't been allowed to hit quotas for deportations. Now, why should you care about this stuff? Well, here's two reasons that I do. First, as a straight white dude, I get that there are some feelings right now about programs meant to help women and minorities. A lot of people that look like me feel like they're being blamed and punished for stuff that happened a long time ago that they didn't do. And frankly, this is something we should all be able to honestly have a conversation about. And yeah, you young fellas out there, I get it. You're working hard. A lot of times you don't feel that that matters. You're worried you can't afford the rent or that you can't buy a house or find a girl. But here's the thing. As one of those guys, I want people working in my government who reflect everyone living here and that treat their jobs professionally. For instance, let's say, like they did, they get rid of the rules that ban discrimination based on being a woman. If I run an agency and believe, like Kansas City Chiefs kicker, yes, another Chiefs reference, Harrison Bucker does, that women shouldn't really get jobs or be promoted because their most important title of all is homemaker, where does that leave people like my sister? She's a doctor with the VA and works her ass off taking care of older vets in Albuquerque. She has a PhD from Brown, did a year fellowship at Yale because she's really fucking smart, and actually turned down a position there full time because she likes to help vets like our father. And she does a damn good job. Should people like her have these jobs if she's a woman? I mean, the answer is of course, but under these new rules, man, I don't know. Regarding the deportation stuff, I am from and live in Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's about 40 more miles from the border. It is a great place. There's super nice people. The mountains are gorgeous, and the green chili cheeseburgers will make you cry. They're so good. But I'm pretty scared about federal agents and maybe even troops storming into my local elementary schools. Now, there's no reports of that happening here yet, thank God, but it does scare the living crap out of families and teachers because Secret Service agents actually did try to go into a Chicago school a couple of weeks ago and had to be turned away by school staff. A district in Akron, Ohio recently locked down their schools when agents were reported in the area. And in my town in 2017, ICE agents did go door to door here asking people for papers. And the next day, there was a 60% rise in school absences because families wouldn't let their kids out of their home because they were so damn terrified. Is this what we want in our schools with our kids? I mean, Don't we just want them to learn how to write, do some math, and maybe play some ball? And this is only the beginning. Remember, it's only been a couple of weeks. If Project 2025 is where Republicans are obviously calling their plays from, what else can we look forward to? These guys hate abortion. They actually say that the Dobbs decision that the Supreme Court took to allow states to ban abortion didn't go far enough, and that folks should push as hard as possible to keep making abortion more and more unaccessible. If you're a woman and living in a state where abortion is banned, this is a super bad idea. Tulane University did a study and they found that more women die in states with hard abortion restrictions because doctors won't do what used to be standard operations for pregnant women. Hell, last year, at least two and probably more women died in Georgia waiting for operations, one of them in a parking lot that never used to be a problem. I wish we knew what the situation was like in Texas, where I just moved from. But there's this group that is supposed to look at how pregnant moms die. It's called the Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee. And they have refused to look at any deaths since Texas made abortion illegal. So we don't know how many of their women died. Project 2025 also calls for making the abortion pill illegal. And remember, because this is now the Republican playbook, last week, the nominee for Secretary of Health, RFK Jr., said he would study the safety issues of the abortion pill, obviously looking to possibly make it banned. And a New York doctor who shipped pills to Louisiana was actually indicted for a felony because they did that. I mean, what's next? These guys going to come into New Mexico and prosecute our doctors if they perform abortions for women living in Texas? Come on, man. The federal agency responsible for monitoring the weather is called NOAA, NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Now, that's really complicated, but it's like this. You know how you go to the Weather Channel and look at those maps to find out whether it's going to rain or be super hot tomorrow? I do it all the time to figure out what the hell I'm going to wear. But people also need that information if there's a hurricane coming or they're worried that their town might be under threat from big ass wildfires. Guess where the Weather Channel gets that information that you look at? Yeah, those folks over at NOAA. Project 2025 wants to completely get rid of that service, all of it. And if they do, how will we find out about the weather? Well, according to this guy, Jared Moskowitz, the dude who ran Florida's emergency management service under the Republican governor there, he said, quote, maybe we'll just do it with a magic 8 ball or maybe with a Ouija board. That's not super comforting. Relying on ghosts of pirates to predict floods probably isn't as good as weather satellites and experts and shit, right? Okay, I'm about to get real nerdy on y'all, and I apologize in advance, but bear with me for a second. Y'all ever seen The Wizard of Oz, or hell, just last year seen Wicked? Musicals are not my thing, but it's made almost $1 billion, so I'm assuming a ton of you really like that stuff. You will never guess what the whole damn story is about. It's about money. See, back in the 1800s, when the book The Wizard of Oz was written, America had this thing called the gold standard. We could only print out the amount of paper money that we actually had in gold in a vault in Fort Knox. Think the yellow brick road. That's what it's an analogy for. This was super great for rich bankers in New York, but screwed over farmers because their money was worth less over time, making it harder to pay back long-term loans. And it was a lot harder to get new low interest loans. That's why in the original book, Dorothy, who represents the regular American, has silver slippers. They were changed to ruby slippers for the movie in the 30s. But silver represented the movement by farmers to add silver to the gold standard to increase the amount of money we had. And she had to go to the Emerald City, which is green, for adding more money. Yes, there was actually a greenback party that ran candidates for president back then, whose whole thing was getting rid of the gold standard. Last bit of nerdiness, the city of Oz, OZ. OZ stands for ounces, like how gold and silver are measured. So when Dorothy, the average American, gets to the Emerald City and clicks her silver slippers, she gets to go back home where her farmer family is happy, right? Now, the US started moving away from the gold standard in the 30s, finally got rid of it about 50 years ago. So why am I talking about this? Project 2025 wants to go back to the gold standard. And again, it's the Republican playbook. So guys like Steve Bannon are out there openly calling for it, and the Texas Republican Party has it as a part of their platform. More things change though, the more they stay the same. And while this would be great for billionaire bankers, it would be pretty crappy for you and your home mortgage. Project 2025 also wants to get rid of completely federal money for Head Start, which helps hundreds of thousands of babies and moms get education. If this happens, those moms and dads would have to spend an additional $12,000 a year for childcare if they can find it, because a lot of times Head Start's the only place they can go in their town. Project 2025 also wants to eliminate free school lunches for poor kids. So if this is something that maybe makes you uncomfortable, what can you do about it? Well, this week you can actually call or email your US senators. So for people like Russ Vought, the author of Project 2025, or RFK Jr., who's looking at making the abortion pill illegal, they have to go through the Senate to get confirmed, or else they don't get their job. That is part of our checks and balances system here in the US, so that the president can't just act like a king. There needs to be multiple things you have to do, so you can't just do what you want when you want to do it. If you call your senators, they will listen. Look, I used to be a New Mexico state rep, and when people contacted me from like Illinois or Florida, I mostly ignored them. But when they called or emailed from my district, I absolutely listened. So if you call or email your senators this week, like I did last week, that might make a difference. The second thing is a little bit more broad, but probably more effective. Find ways to tell your story. A lot of times in public life, things seem big, and we figure if we just go about our lives and put our heads down, things are going to be okay because none of that stuff really affects us. But we've seen stuff that can affect us, and even more so this last week. Project 2025 people in the Republican administration stopped all federal grant money for a day or two. That meant millions of people on Medicaid, a health program run by the federal government that poor people a lot of times rely on to get taken care of. They had a freeze placed on their funding. Poor older folks who rely on Meals on Wheels, which are those vans that go around giving food out to people who can't drive anymore, they were wondering if they were going to be able to eat. And there's a suicide hotline for vets run by these grants that has stopped for a bit because they didn't know whether they're going to get their money. And this is a group that helps folks like my old man who was having some serious PTSD issues not kill themselves. And again, people like my sister, a really smart, hardworking doc, helping vets, they're worried about their jobs. She got a letter a couple of weeks ago from Trump asking if she would like to resign. And almost every other federal candidate got one as well. If she does that and everybody else does as well, who's going to take care of all those old vets in Albuquerque? We live in a society dominated by attention and stories. So if you are a person that works for Head Start or Meals on Wheels or the Vet Suicide Hotline, or you have a family member that relies on VA docs, tell people what you do. Tell people about the people that are getting helped and why it's important. If you're a woman worried about your health because of this crusade against abortion, let people know how it feels and why it matters. And if they start sending agents and or troops into schools or churches, be like my friend and former New Mexico Teacher of the Year, David Morales. He's a soccer coach at Mayfield, where I graduated from, teacher. And the last time these raids happened, he stepped up and talked to the New Yorker about how it affected the kids in his classroom. If you want help on how to share these stories, I'd be happy to talk with you about it. Please feel free to reply on social media with your questions or comments, or email me at whatthebleepdoesthismean@gmail.com. That is whatthebleepdoesthismean, all one word, @gmail.com. And if you have any other questions or comments about this stuff, whether you agree with me or not, I am all ears. Please feel free, like you can contact me and we can have a civil discussion, which is what this country's supposed to be all about. Thanks everybody so much for listening to this, and good luck out there.